Good afternoon. On behalf of Marianne Wilcox's family, I welcome you to this celebration of life. I also welcome Marianne's daughter, Carolyn, and her other family members who will be watching from afar. And I am very grateful that we have the technology for those who could not attend to be with us. And I want to thank our technicians, Jake and John, for making this all possible. Marianne's daughter, Diane, and Marianne's son, Michael, and her grandson, Holden, are here with us today. So we're just wonderful to meet you. So we have come together to celebrate and honor our loved one, Marianne. And this is a time designated to release her from her physical presence with us and to honor a life well lived. And even more importantly, it is a time to celebrate, support, and love her in a new and fresh dimension of her life. We know that Marianne will be choosing a new adventure filled with love, filled with strength, and purpose, just as she lived this physical life with all of us. At this time, I would like to ask Michael to please come up. Michael is lighting this candle, and it represents the light of Marianne's spirit. That is a radiant expression of unconditional love. And as we watch the flickering of the light, may it remind us of the vibrancy of her beingness. May it represent the dancing of her soul as she continues on expressing and experiencing life in another place, in her own unique way. And may the light of this candle live within your heart as a reminder of the love that Marianne had for you. So I would like to now invite you to sing Spirit of Life. And our invocation this afternoon, Spirit of Life, we acknowledge our presence, your presence within us and around us as the source and oneness of all of life. The Spirit of oneness joins us all in love, compassion, and caring, and the ability to feel this connection deep within our hearts. We are mourning the loss of our loved one, Mary Ann. We ask all the divine beings to join us today and remind us that in truth, there can be no separation. She will always be with us, and that she will always remain in our hearts and in our memories. We ask that you bring the comfort of your loving presence to this celebration and to each one of us as we experience your love and light in our own special way. In knowing that love is the only truth, we find comfort. We feel the blessings deep in our hearts that Mary Ann gave so freely to each person in her life and in her very special way. We lift up our hearts in thanks for the gift of her presence in our lives. And so it is. I would like to now invite Martha up to share a reading and light our chalice.
In our time of grief, we light a flame of sharing, the flame of ongoing life. In this time, when we search for understanding and serenity in the face of loss, we light this sign of our quest for truth, meaning, and community.
Thank you, Martha. All right, it's time for us to sing a song, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. So please stand if you will.
Tell us
I felt Marianne singing with us. She loved that song. I would like to invite Merlin Hill to come up and read The Traveler for us.
Oh, well. There, I think that's good enough. Marianne has put on invisibility. Dear Lord, I cannot see, but this I know, although the road ascends and passes from my sight, that there will be no night. That you take her gently by the hand and lead her on along the road of life that never ends, and she will find it is not death but dawn. I do not doubt that you are there as here, and you will hold her dear. Our life did not begin with birth. It is not of the earth. And this that we call death, it is no more than the opening and closing of a door. And in your house, how many rooms must be beyond this one where we rest momently? Dear Lord, I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, the love that, looking through the shadows, sees that you and she and I are ever one.
Thank you, Merlin. Well, I have the honor. Can you hear me now? I have the honor of presenting the eulogy for Marianne. On the Saturday afternoon of April 8th, 2023, Marianne Wilcox decided to leave this realm and continue her spiritual journey at the age of 91. At this time, she was with her son Michael and had just completed a video call with her older daughter Diane and daughter-in-law Cam, and had recently spoken to her younger daughter Carolyn. Perhaps she was fulfilled and at peace by being able to see and speak to all of her children, for she fell asleep and did not wake. She was born on September 22nd, 1931, to Alvin L. and Julia E. Turner, and grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Eventually, she moved to San Francisco, California, where she met and married Alexander F. Wilcox. Marianne and Al had 3 children. Their eldest daughter, Diane, was born prior to their marriage, and Marianne relinquished her for adoption. Following her marriage to Al, they welcomed into their lives Michael and Carolyn. Marianne and Al reunited with Diane 25 years later, and Diane has been a part of their lives ever since, making the family unit whole again. Marianne is survived by her older daughter, Diane E. Stewart Jones, and daughter-in-law, Kim R. Stewart Jones, her son, Michael S. Wilcox, and daughter-in-law, Darcy C. Wilcox, her youngest daughter, Carolyn A. Phillips, as well as multiple grandchildren. One of her grandchildren is here today, Holden. She was predeceased by her sister, Barbara L. Turner, brother Dan J. Turner, and her husband, Alexander F. Wilcox. Marianne earned a degree in nursing from the University of Minnesota. When she moved to California and married, her and Al raised their family in Sebastopol, California, where Marianne worked as a Sonoma County public health nurse. When it came time to retire, her and Al moved to Roseburg and built a home. Marianne kept very busy. Like her sister Barbara, she enjoyed painting. And we have some of her paintings this morning. The painting on the table in the back is Marianne's. And in the foyer, there are 2 other paintings. And she was a very good artist. Beautiful paintings. She was a birder and active in the Audubon Society. And she was interested in alternative philosophies and religions. In her biography, she stated that she had been a Unitarian Universalist since she was 20 years old. She stated that the most important aspect of UU is being able to have her own personal beliefs and honoring those of all others. She began her relationship here at this church in 1994. Here she shared her wisdom, her love, and her service in many ways. She was a board member, an office volunteer. She sang in the choir, and she shared her voice with great enthusiasm. We loved hearing her sing. Now, I have only known Marianne with a walker. I so admired how she took control of that walker and made it work for her. She would get up and turn that thing around and stand up there and just sing her heart out. I just loved it. And then I made the mistake of one day of asking her if I could help her get her refreshments as she was gathering them around the table. Nope. She was very good at getting whatever she wanted. And I remember she had these little bags on her walker, and she had all of her stuff in it. She was well prepared. And everything that she did was with great confidence. I think we can all remember that about her, yes. Marianne also gave many talks, informative talks. I only had the opportunity to hear one of her talks on December 31st, 2017. And it was based on the book by David Hawkins called Power versus Force. Marianne and I both loved that book, and we had many conversations about the concepts in that book. In her talk about this book, she inspired us to make the commitment and intention to raise our consciousness to that of love, compassion, and caring. She understood that choosing love over fear was how we were to be a positive force in this world. She was committed to the public good and strived to make the world a better place. Her chosen opening words, meditation, and closing words that day are reflective of her beliefs, and I want to share them with you today. Her opening words were by Brother Toby McCarroll of Starcross. He says, "You are running a relay. This is the moment you have chosen to hold the torch. You cannot refuse to run. Whatever you do is part of your page in the story of life. The day will come when you pass the torch, but the story continues." And during her meditation that day, she expressed the words of Nelson Mandela. "People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love." And from the book Power versus Force, the truth of oneself can be discovered in everyday life. To live with care and kindness is all that is necessary. The rest reveals itself in due time. The commonplace and God are not distinct. And her closing words that day were by Brother Toby McCarroll also. "When good people do good things in time, something good happens. So plant those seeds. We may never see what blooms, but it is the right thing to do." Marianne lived those words and stuck to her beliefs. She knew what was right in her heart, and she shared that with the world and all those around her. She was an inspiration. She was a bright light, smiling and accepting all of those around her. And you can see that light shining from the picture on her program. it's just her happiness just touches your heart. She knew the meaning of love, and she was not afraid to express that love. I remember the last time I saw Marianne, I had gone to see Pat Zemlin, and as I walked up the stairs to the second floor, there was Rick Zemlin and Marianne. And I was surprised to see her at that moment. I was prepared to find her after I had spoken to Pat, but there she was. And she looked younger than I'd ever seen her before, and she was bright and alert. And we sat there, the three of us, and had this wonderful conversation. And we talked about a whole bunch of things in that short time. And it was really easy to talk to Marianne, wasn't it? And she's always a fountain of information. Marianne's son, Michael, found some inspirational words in her belongings that further reflect her beliefs in equality, the importance of diversity, freedom, fairness, and human dignity. And they are on the back of your program. So I thought we could reflect on these together. Tolerance is a personal decision that comes from a belief that every person is a treasure. I believe that America's diversity is its strength. I also recognize that ignorance, insensitivity, and bigotry can turn that diversity into a source of prejudice and discrimination. To help keep diversity a wellspring of strength and make America a better place for all, I pledge to have respect for people whose abilities, beliefs, culture, race, sexual identity, or other characteristics are different from my own. We believe in freedom, fairness, human dignity, and full equality under the law. We believe in the sanctity of marriage. We believe in love and commitment. And our liberal religion, where all people seeking goodness and truth are accepted. Marianne was also very busy writing to the editor. She was really good at that. Where are those? I know I don't have time to read them, but I just thought I would read the titles. Society works when people follow guidance. That was in December 1920. Maybe we're not all that different if we show a little tolerance. That was the title to that one in May 21. In March of 21, follow the path that suits you best. These were all printed in the newspaper in Roseburg. In February 20, work together to find solution to housing problem. In April 21, tasers before guns, ? Less lethal long before lethal force, ? And this one, I can hardly read it, but it's good life starts with a healthy childhood. And I think I read that one. So she was very busy. These are just a few of them that Maria provided for us today. But I loved her willingness to share her beliefs because she wanted to make everyone have a happy life. And that's one way to do it, isn't it? Put it in the local newspaper. So as you can see from the words she kept near her, the words that she wrote in the newspaper, the words that she shared with each and every one of us during our times with her, was dedicated to making the lives of everyone better. She was a positive energy that touched us all. She had a firm basis of beliefs that gave her life meaning. Words can be hollow. Marianne's words were filled with integrity and were spoken to reflect her truth, her love, and her compassionate nature. So for me, each one of us chooses every moment of our lives whether to live from love or fear. And as we look at Marianne's life, it is easy to see that she chose love. She chose love, she gave love, she taught love, and received love. And each and every one of us is blessed by all of those moments with her and the seeds of love that she planted as she walked this earth. I would like to invite Diane up now. This is Marianne's daughter, Diane. Okay. You're standing there. Okay. Do you want this?
No, I'm good.
You're
I
good.
used to sing opera. I can fill the room with sound.
The only problem is if you don't use the mic, it's not going to go out on the line.
Oh,
That's why you need to use it.
okay. Well, let's do that then.
As they fill a loud mouth.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you. I am a blessed child. I have two families, not just one, but two full families. And I have Marianne to thank for that. As an adopted child, you know, it's not hard to not see her right now because she's behind a veil and we don't see her. But, you know, for me, she's always been that way. Always. Because for me, she's always been in the background somewhere. I didn't always know where, but somewhere she's been there. So I wanted to read this thing about an adopted child, which I am, and I'm very grateful that I'm an adopted child, and that I have a brother and a sister that look like me, and I have two brothers in my other family, and wonderful parents all the way around. So in adoption, a child is not given up. In adoption, a birth mother gives life, a child a family, and unconditional love, which she was really good at. She gives a part of her heart that will never, never feel whole. She gives another mother a part of her heart that was always missing, and it was so missing in my other mother. She always knew she wanted to adopt children. She never wanted to have her own, so it was perfect for the two of them. An adopted mother gives a life and a family to this child. She gives unconditional love, and she gives a part of her heart to another mother. You give a lot in adoption. You just never give anything up. And I'm so grateful Marianne never gave me up. I'm so grateful to be a child of two families. And I'm so glad Marianne found me after 25 years. So even though I don't see you right now, just like before for those first 25 years, the last 25 years of my life, she's still there. I can still feel her, just like I could when I was a kid. So thank you, Marianne. I love you so much.
Thank you so much, Diane. Let's sing together, Behold, written and played by Sean Shea.
If you feel like singing a harmony part,
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. And now we have some pictures of Marianne's life that was prepared by Diane, her daughter. And so John is going to start that for us. Thank you for that, Diane. Now it's time for us to share some stories. And I'd like to read a few words from those who couldn't be with us today. These are Lillian Fifield's words. Marianne, though only 20 years my senior, filled a place in my world I had never known, that of grandmother and mother. She immediately accepted, valued, and openly loved this Californian, totally out lesbian activist who recently moved to Roseburg in 2007 and had just started coming to UUUC. She invited me to a meeting which turned out to be PFLAG. For weeks, that turned into months and into years. We sat often alone, sharing our lives and passions and dreams and experiences. In high school, when I was 14 in the 1950s, Marianne was the family I had needed to come out with. She listened to the depth of living that the teenager in me had never shared. And with her gentleness, we filled in the holes that had been empty. I watched with awe as she listened with compassion and love to the parents and the young people coming to PFLAG for acceptance, understanding, and a future. Many of us knew her activism and passion for social justice. I was gifted with knowing the depth of a commitment she held for changing injustice, inequality, unfairness, prejudice, and any inequity she encountered. She did her work out of love. Marianne Wilcox is my shero. Jim McCrae. I loved Marianne. She was a good friend, and I respected her greatly. She had a wonderful, positive, loving personality, and she was very accepting. We shared stories of her lesbian daughter and birds that she saw. I helped her sort out her possessions when she moved to Garden Valley Retirement Center, and she was always so grateful for our help. I loved seeing her when we would go to visit Pat Zimlin, and we even had a meal with her there. I will miss her a lot. Dana McDonald. Marianne was a warm-hearted, kind, and happy woman. I remember going to her home for a dinner of UU members and enjoyed the time in her home, sharing stories and becoming closer to each other. Also, she loved singing with the choir, and her voice resounded beautifully. She is loved and missed by many in our congregation and other groups she was active in. Blessings, and may your spirit be flying free. These are words from Rick Zimlin. Marianne and Pat Zimlin, Rick's mother, graduated from the same high school class, Washburn High, about 1949, in Minneapolis. Though they didn't become friends or even acquainted with each other until they met by pure chance as members of the choir at Umpqua Unitarian Universalist congregation decades later. They both spent their final years at Garden Valley Retirement Residence, where they lived down the hall from each other. As both declined in health in those last 3 years, they carefully watched after each other's needs. Pat would call Marianne daily when Marianne was in the hospital or rehab, and Marianne would watch out for Pat as she would carefully make her way down the hallway with her walker to meals, with Marianne moving backwards in her wheelchair in front of Pat. Marianne passed away 5 months after Pat Zimlin. So now I would like to open it up to all of you. I know that you'd like to share some of your stories with us.
I'm John Asham, and I had the pleasure of having Marianne be the secretary while I served as president of this congregation, and did a lot to try and record things. I also put grab bars in her shower stalls, and with the conversation found out that she spent the months of fall in 1968 to the early months of fall in 1969 at the very corner of Haight and Ashbury in San Francisco. But she never, ever told me the story. And I still feel like a little kid who's got cheated out of a good story.
Who's next?
I'm June Irvin. I met Marianne about 22 or 3 years ago when I moved here and joined this church. Right away I found out that she'd been a UU forever, and I was brand new to the whole thing, a little bit different from other religions I'd dabbled in. Marianne and I became really close friends after we both were widowed a few years later. We had lunch together every Sunday after church. Sometimes were joined with others, sometimes just the two of us, but we really got to know each other and talk about our childhood, our kids, our families, and all of that. And I think one thing I should mention for all of those who don't know, out in front, you see some legs under a black witch hat. Marianne always wore the witch hat when we had costume parties here every Halloween for many years. We always had a party here. She was big into parties. And the feet, the legs, she kept dangling from the back of her car for the last several years that she was able to drive. Those dangling legs were always following her around, so we just had to put them up here. It was just part of Marianne. She was a delight. She was a member of 5 of us for many years. We had coffee together every week, rain or shine, someplace we met and had coffee together. And she was the most caring, wonderful person. Sometimes we get off on politics. Marianne never had a bad thing to say, never, about anybody. No matter how wild we got with some of our conversations, she calmed us down. She never said anything bad. And I'm really going to miss her.
I'm Sharon Haig. I have 3 vivid memories of Marianne at the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist congregation. The first was her love of singing. While I was music director here, she would give me words of support when I was trying to herd the cats during a rehearsal. Secondly was Marianne's sense of humor. During a church workshop and preparing estate planning documents, I appreciated Marianne's gift for expressing herself through writing. What could have been melancholic times, Marianne's wisdom and candor shone through. The third recollection I have was when Marianne volunteered as the Friday office person so that staff was relieved to attend staff meetings. Besides answering the telephone at that time, Marianne would send birthday cards to members and friends of the congregation. I appreciated that she would send a greeting year after year representing the church community to celebrate my being a creature on the planet. In her last years, I would visit Marianne when she resided at the Garden Valley Retirement Center. Despite her mobility issues and hospitalizations, Marianne was upbeat while being honest about her health. I admired her continual efforts to have contact with the fellow residents. Her warm receptions made me glad that I had stopped to see her and Bonnie and Clyde. Sometimes I would sit with Marianne when there was a church service at the retirement center. Though she believed differently than those gathered, she shared that she enjoyed singing along with the hymns, which I did too. The 3 friends, Marianne, Pat Zemlin, and Lori August, all lived at the center, and they would share information about the other ones with me. Marianne always knew the status of the other 2 to give me a report. I am saddened by Marianne's absence. However, I am very glad that I knew her and could share a love of music with her. I shall remember her gentle soul.
I'm Martha Sinkula. I had the privilege of meeting Marianne when Joe and I moved here in 2010, and I joined the choir when it was run by Her Highness over there. I can't remember your name. My brain, Sharon just died. Anyway, yeah, it's just been a long day. And I have such fond memories of singing with Marianne as a singer myself, and we sang the same range, but I could go a little higher. And we did a lot of doodling and noodling and ad-libbing and driving Michael nuts when he took over the choir. One of the things that I have fond memories is she made sure that every one of us had a copy of this book, Power versus Force. It was her philosophy. And I helped do that service that she wrote for that. And she just amazed me. Her intellect was so intact and so able and so quick. And all those letters to the editor, which I'm so glad we have, because I was always, Marianne wrote another one. One thing that we did every New Year's is we sang Auld Lang Syne, my soprano, rickety as it was, to her alto. And I was hoping that Glennis could come here today so that we could do Auld Lang Syne, but Glennis had another commitment, so we didn't. But every New Year's Eve that we presented a service, we did Auld Lang Syne. And she always had to do that. It was part of her. I will miss her. Her spirit is always with us. And I'm so grateful to finally meet Michael and Diane. And I can see where they get their sense of humor. It's wonderful to meet you, and you too, Holden. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. We will all miss Marianne.
I may have forgotten to say that the copies of those editorials are in the back on that table, if you want to read them.
I'm Diana Wales, and I had the pleasure of knowing Marianne in many of her lives. I'm the president of the Audubon chapter here, and Marianne, everything that everyone said about what she did here with the church, she also did with our chapter. Always, I mean, I think she held probably every office at one point or another, and was always there to chip in whenever things were needed. She and I both had prior careers as public health nurses, and so we were always sort of sharing thoughts about whatever was going on and public health implications. And then social justice. Anytime there was a rally, anytime there was anything, you could always count. Marianne was always going to be one of the people there. And even when it required her with a walker, and you kind of worried, because sometimes, we're getting out of parking lots and going up on sidewalks and, worried a little bit. She was a trooper and was always there. So it was wonderful. It's one of the blessings of a small town where your lives can kind of weave together over a long period of time in a lot of different ways.
Hi, I'm a stranger here, but I am from her art side. And Marianne and I took classes together, and we were in several groups together. And even when she was in her walker, we would do some plein air art. And we would go outside, and she would, so tenacious, it didn't slow her down one bit. But even though I knew her for a short time, she made a huge impact in my life, as I can see from everyone else that has spoken the same thing when I read her obituary. And I noticed on her Facebook page that a couple of my artist friends from our class had made comments how much she meant to us and how much we will miss her, even though I hadn't seen her in a long time. But that's why I'm here today. And she was a beautiful soul.
Anyone else?
I missed out on not knowing Marianne for the majority of her life, probably the last 15 years. And we all look through a little hole in the fence at somebody's life and pretty much everything. And something I haven't heard mentioned today, but we shared her compassion and love for animals, just as everybody else. We are one.
Thank you.
I promise to take good care of Clyde.
Clyde is Mary Ann's cat. That I think Maria actually has it right now. Yeah. Anybody else?
I would like to say that I met Marianne, of course, I'm Connie, and I met Marianne at church. And God, these incredible things would come out of her mouth, and how she loved, all these different groups of people, and I would sit over there and she'd be over here, and I'd think, oh my God, what a wonderful woman. And then it was when Annie was here, there was a collage workshop, and I don't know if some of you attended, but I did, and I saw that humorous side of Marianne that I hadn't known about, and she did. She was a wonderful person and a happy person to be around.
I didn't know Marianne all that long, but we fell kind of in love right away when we met because we had so many things in common. Not that I'm that nice of a person, but I'm. You be quiet over here. But she was very, very involved in everything that I was. Every time I went somewhere, there she was, and often we sat together, and I really feel like I got to know her. I actually think I met her through you, and I'll tell you, this gal come from out of state with not much, and Mary Ann just took her in and just, actually, that's the reason why she actually stayed in my house when I had to go away for 3 months and take care of. I had 2 brothers that were ill. And so anyhow, it was like she just took care of people, and everybody I met through Mary Ann, I liked. And I only just now found out that where I graduated, my school was right near Sebastopol, California. I never knew she was from Sebastopol, California for a while, but I was from Petaluma at that time. No more. But anyhow, I just want to say that even from seeing people in this room, and I know several of you, that she really had great friends, and they loved her. I never met anybody that didn't love Mary Ann.
That's true. Anyone else? I think we're about ready for the next hymn, John. This is a very special song. And I am anyway, and I invite you to sing it.
anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Our closing words this morning, or this afternoon. We will remember you in the rising of the sun and its going down. We will remember you in the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter. We will remember you in the opening of the buds and in the splendor of the spring. We will remember you in the rustling of the leaves and in the gorgeous autumn. We will remember you. In the beginning of the new year and when it ends, we will remember you. So long as we live, you too shall live. For you are a part of us, and we will remember. So as we reflect on this moment, focusing on our love in our hearts that we're feeling now, let us remember what we are grateful for. We are grateful for being touched by the love of Marianne that she so freely gave in all the roles she played: daughter, sister, wife, mother, grandmother, public health nurse, birder, Unitarian, and lover of life committed to justice, equality, and making the world a better place. Let us be grateful for her continued presence in our hearts and our memories. And let us be grateful for this opportunity to mourn and celebrate together, sharing our tears and our laughter. And let us be grateful for knowing that she has left the world a better place by her presence. Marianne's calling. I apologize, I put that on airplane mode. So I'd like to have us all now sing Go Lift It Up. Laughter among the tears.
Moonlight
blessing reading and to extinguish the chalice.
We extinguish this chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.
Thank you for being here and sharing. It's been wonderful to be together. And now we have some wonderful refreshments coming up from downstairs in just a moment that June and Maria and Doris prepared for all of us. And I even brought a little bit of wine, just in case. Okay, so join us for refreshments, everyone.